Welcome to episode 3 of Mother Gaia Birthy Podcast. Today I'm joined by Rebel Jones, a writer based in Scotland, who will be sharing her inspiring home birth story. Rebel's most recent birth took place outside of NHS guidelines, and she opens up about both the challenges and the incredible sense of empowerment and joy that came with it. Her story is one of courage, trust and deep connection to her body and her baby. But just before we dive in, a quick note. You may notice a bit of an echo in the recording, but thankfully it only happens when I'm speaking, and I promise I don't speak much. Thanks for your understanding. Now let's get on to this amazing conversation with Rebel.
Definitely my son's my most recent birth.
Yeah, cool.
He was my healing birth, my everything good about life birth.
Excellent. That sounds like a afternoon I want to spend. So he's your 8-year-old, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So chat with me. How did his pregnancy come about? Was it something that you planned?
No, definitely not planned. He was a welcome surprise. In a very rocky relationship, I must admit, that didn't last very long. But then I was pregnant with my son. I didn't know it was a son at the time. I had the 3 other children. And I thought, what am I going to do? I did not plan for this. We'd moved to Scotland about 6 months before for a quiet life. And I thought, this is not a quiet life I planned.
No, putting a baby into anything does not make anything quiet.
No. I decided quite early on that I was having as minimal NHS intervention as possible.
Yeah.
So I didn't go for a 12-week scan. I went for the antenatal checkups and stuff. I didn't go for a 12-week scan, which caused a headache and a half. The NHS were not happy about that at all.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't go for it is because my previous birth, I was told at 12 weeks, oh, just get rid of the baby. It's not viable. And I couldn't go through that again.
Wow.
My husband at the time actually carried me in a fireman's lift out of hospital because I was that distraught that I was probably going to knock the consultant out if he told me that at the time.
Wow.
I just went, I'm not dealing with it this time. I'm just not.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of grief at the 12-week scan that I refused to go for, that you're putting your baby at risk, you're doing this, you're doing that, which ended up in all sorts of complaints and going up managers' trails and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Eventually they gave in.
Yeah.
I then went through a series of 5 midwives over my pregnancy because they wouldn't deal with me.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Because I wanted such a low maintenance, low pressure pregnancy. I didn't want the full on support. I just wanted minimal.
Yeah.
And they don't like.
No, they really don't like that.
No. So we went through 5 midwives because they just went not working with her. And I ended up with the manager of the area in the end. And she was phenomenal. She was great.
Yeah. She
finally got it. And I said, and I think I was 33 or 34. And I said, I want a home birth. And she went, no. And I went, we are? And she went, no, you're a geriatric mum. And
I hate that term. Yeah. 83-year-old. Yeah, right.
Wow, I should know. We are home birthing. I was intending to have a home birth previously with my daughter, and it just didn't come about. So I went, no, I'm doing it this time. Single mom, 3 kids. I am doing this. So she kind of humoured me, shall we say, through the pregnancy with lots of, we'll see. But, other than that, she was okay.
Yeah.
So I took to Facebook groups and I found home birth groups and I drove myself potty going round and round in questions. I asked hundreds of questions. I did my research. I had, 20-page plans of what I was going to do.
Yeah.
They still kept saying to me, no, you can't do that. And the lack of support actually drove me to the point where I was YouTube videoing how to birth myself if they wouldn't come out, because they were saying they won't come.
Yeah.
And I just got to that distress level that's like, I have to do this. And I don't know why. It was maybe irrational. It was maybe stubborn. I don't know. But I got to the point where I said, I will do this myself. You can't do that. You can't do that. So I went and checked the law. And I said, I can.
Yes.
This is my birth. This is my body. I can.
Yeah, absolutely, you can. Yeah.
They kept turning up at my house saying, you need to come in. We then got to 40 weeks and all my babies are late. All of them.
Yep.
We went from 7 days late was the quickest.
Yep.
And 15 days late was the longest.
Yep.
So it's just normal. I wasn't concerned. They were turning up at my door at 40 weeks and 4 days. We need to get you in. We need to get you induced.
Wow.
No. I had to threaten to call the police if they did not leave my property.
Yeah.
All the emotional, you are putting yourself at risk. You don't know what you're doing. I went, don't push me because I will not call you come the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That 41 and 2 days they gave in and bought the home birth kit out because they realised I was not moving.
Well, I mean, good for you that they actually did that, but my God, it shouldn't have taken them that long.
No, and all the midwives went, I'm not dealing with it. I'm not being on call for her. So the manager stayed on call for me. And she went, okay, if you're going to do this, I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
And she came out with another one that I don't even remember. It was such a blur. But she came out and she stayed with me and she said, do you know what? You did it. You stuck with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no choices, no listening, no nothing.
Yeah. Did you actually give birth at home then in the end?
Yeah.
Yay! Excellent.
2 hours. That's all it was 2 hours.
Wow.
And it was
perfect.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It was everything I ever wanted.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So
And the fight was horrendous.
So when you were writing out like your birth plans and like I think you said you saw like 20 odd pages of things.
It was stupid, yeah.
Obviously that's because you had no support and you were really kind of like, I need to look at everything, every in, every out, everything. If I have to do this by myself, I need to know how to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
If you had more support,
yeah.
If say that the midwives were on your side, if you had, I don't know, maybe even had like a doula or something like that, do you think you would have been more relaxed about it? Would you have had a longer, shorter?
100%, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of what happened came from my anxiety of I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And that's not something that any woman should be on their own for.
No, absolutely not. Who else did you have? Because I know you said you were like a rocky relationship at the time. Was that still by the birth or?
Oh, no, we broke up in the first few months of me being pregnant.
Okay.
And he wasn't there. My mum wasn't supportive of it. Even when I phoned her and said I'm in labour, and she went, well, you best get to the hospital then, even though she knew my plan the whole way through. And nobody, literally nobody.
Yeah. That must have been really hard.
The neighbour 2 doors up, who I'd barely spoken to, said, well, if you need it and you have to go in an ambulance, then I'll have the children. And that was as much as I had.
Wow. That's quite scary, really, though, isn't it? I mean, the fact that you even still stuck your heels in and went, I'm doing it this way regardless. So which bits of your sort of birth plan did you go, I absolutely needed this, or this is what I stuck to because I needed it? And what bits kind of like, with the view of hindsight, did you look at and go, I really didn't need that at all? That was absolutely anxiety inducing.
I adamantly put in it that they were to be hands off.
Yep.
With my other pregnancies and births and that, it was a lot of monitors, a lot of, you must sit this position, you must do that. And I adamantly said, no, this is minimal contact. And I'm so glad I stuck to it, because with the other ones, I found it so invasive. I didn't feel in control at all. You're strapped up, you're this, you're that. And do you know, if everything's going to plan, I don't see why that's necessary to felt like a hostage.
Well, yeah. So I agree. I mean, one of my births, I was strapped up to the monitor and told I had to lie on my back, and all I wanted to do was get up on my feet, and I wasn't allowed to move and things like that. You are, for all intents and purposes, strapped to a bed.
Yeah, and it's horrendous.
Yeah.
And learning that was actually the worst way to birth, because all the pressure and that's why are you doing it then? Why is that you must, when that's the worst possible situation at all?
Yeah, because it's easier for them. It is literally easier for them because they can see better. Yeah.
I had was originally going to have a water birth at home, and then we found out that my corner bath I had at the time was deep enough to birth in. So it's like, okay, we're not going to get a pool, we're just going to birth in that. And I am adamantly having a water birth. This is my last birth, I am doing it. I didn't move off the ball on the floor. The midwife said to me, right, should we get you enough? No.
It is funny how you go through certain things. You're adamant you're going to have X, Y, and Z, and when it gets to it, it's like, actually, no, I'm not doing that now.
I brought my daughter, who was only just turned 4 at the time, I brought her a little bathing costume so that she could come for the majority of it with me. I wanted my kids to be very, as involved as they wanted to be. My teens weren't interested, but my daughter, we were very close, and I wanted her to be as close as possible to the situation. As it happened, she slept through the whole event, so she wasn't even there.
Fair enough.
But no, I was adamant I was having that. I was adamant we are doing it this way. I am having it in there. I bought a sieve for the bath for afterwards to get all the remnants out.
Yeah, well, you don't want that going down the plug up.
No, I didn't move. So I had a very structured birth, I think would be a way to put it. And that went out the window, and it really wasn't necessary at all. It was a much easier go with whatever I was comfortable with at the time.
Yeah. But it's nice to know that you planned for that, and you had the things that if you wanted to, you had that option. It's not the same as being told you have to lie on your back on that bed. You know that, oh, well, actually, I could go upstairs and I could be in that bath, or I could be downstairs, or I could be on my bed.
Yeah.
I've said for quite some time now, it's having the option and it being your decision, whether that's you decided it in week 2 or you decide it 20 minutes into labour. It doesn't matter, there's an option, and it's your decision.
I definitely feel my hospital births, the other 3 were very, you will do this, you will do that, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And that was just so different at home because I was much more in charge. I didn't allow him to burst my waters.
Yeah.
And he was one push off being born in the sack.
Wow.
The others, they'd all done that. They said, no, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I looked into it, but why do you need to do it? Oh, it speeds it up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But my body's not ready.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
One of the other things I learned, this grosses my husband not completely. He won't have this
I've got
conversation.
lots of gross things I could share with you.
But I learned that I didn't have to push, that the body can do it at its own pace. And a lot of the reason they tell you to push is to speed things up again. And I said, I'm not pushing. And I actually had an argument with the second midwife who I barely remember about it. And she said, well, if you don't push, we're going to. I went, you're going to leave my house if you tell me that one more time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm absolutely in awe of you to be able to do that all by yourself and to stand up for yourself and to tell midwives to where to go in that moment as well. Obviously, having been there 3 times myself, I know I got to a point where I wanted to tell people to get knotted or do whatever, and I didn't have the breath. I didn't have the anything. You're in that moment of I just want you all to back off. But you can't get enough of a breath to be able to verbalise that, and you don't have enough of a swing to punch people at the time either.
I apparently growled at her. I do not remember this, but I was told afterward because I was having the conversation mid-contraction. So apparently I growled at her to get her hands away from me.
Yeah. No, I completely understand.
Well, how was afterwards then? Because obviously you're at home, you've given birth, it's that a completely different environment.
Surreal. Yeah, surreal. I'd asked in my birthing plan that they don't touch my baby unless necessary.
Yeah.
And I birthed him on all fours so that I could lift him up.
Yeah.
And they stayed hands off for 32 minutes. It said on the notes they didn't touch him for, which was beautiful.
Oh, bless.
Absolutely beautiful. The surreal moment as they're piecing my placenta back together on the floor in front of me. It's like,
right.
oh, this is the bit you don't see in hospital. Okay.
So what did you do with your placenta? Did you just take it away? Was it part of the...
Yeah, we left it all attached for nearly an hour. No cord cutting. I said I didn't want it. I wanted to leave it as much as you can. So in the end, I didn't need injection or anything. I just managed to birth the placenta. And then at home, it's shower curtains all over the floor, and that's to try and protect the rented property.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've just got these two women on their hands and knees piecing things back together on the floor, and it's quite a strange moment.
It's like the weirdest jigsaw you've ever seen.
Yeah. But they bagged everything up, and then one left, and the one that I liked stayed, and she helped dress me. And I was sleeping on an airbed in the front room at that point because I was just too tired to even go to bed. I got so big and heavy. It was just so she helped me crawl across the floor into bed.
Yeah.
And then she got my kids up so they could come down, and this was like 12 o'clock at night at this point. To come down and meet the baby, and it was really nice.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds awesome.
I just it was so different. The other births, the baby's off you, let's do this, let's do that. Baby's put in a crib, and it just feels so disconnected.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt so much in control at home.
Yeah. And that's the difference, isn't it? Then you've got that power, you've got that control. It's very much you and your decisions, and about red tape or ticking boxes.
No. No, because they knew I was going to throw them out if they tried.
Yeah, just fair enough. So how did you do in the sort of like weeks and months following? Because obviously you wanted very little NHS sort of involvement. Or was it like home visits and things like that? Did you go for that, or did you turn that down as well, or what happened there?
I was fine with the midwives coming around.
Yep.
And then the health visitor, who I'd had a run-in with before, about 3 weeks before I had the baby, my little boy, she'd ambushed another meeting I had for my daughter. I think it was her JAGs or something, and the midwife decided to ambush the health visitor this appointment.
Okay.
Which ended up in me less than politely asking her to leave.
Yeah.
My little girl has social anxiety, so the last thing she needed was people bombarding the room at the time.
Yep.
I said, this is not the time and the place.
Yeah.
The midwife, the health visitor, turned up on my door at 5 days after I'd had baby.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in. I was up and about and doing everything by that point. So I take my kids out for the afternoon.
Yeah.
And she called me. She said, you're not in. That's correct. I'm not in. Well, you should be resting. I'm fine. We're out and we're doing this. Right, well, I need to come visit baby. I said, well, I did tell you that I wasn't going to be having a health visitor. I said, I've had 3 children before. I am fine. I'm not having a health visitor. I was immediately reported to social services.
Yeah. They're a fun service, aren't they?
Social services laughed at her and told her that we were ridiculous, thankfully, because it could have gone very differently.
Yeah. And
I did eventually get a written apology from the health visitor board and said, if you need us, you know where we are.
Yeah.
But yes, 5 days, emotional, other children, everything else. And they reported me for not taking their help.
Yeah. And the amount of times I've got to say this is that their service is offered. It's not a requirement. And I don't think the people who work there understand that. It's like, yes, it's a very good service when it's working properly. But if you don't want that service, it's like going to the dentist and them extracting a tooth when actually you wanted your nails done. The two things don't mesh. It's not something that you need to be doing. So again, having to go through that, especially 5 days post-natal, and why would you bombard someone? You've been told,
No.
Don't need it, don't want it. Thank you very much for the offer. I've got your phone number. I need it.
And that's it. I did inform them that I wasn't going to use them. It's not like I just hid from them. I said thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Mother Gaia Birthy Podcast. A big thank you to Rebel Jones for sharing her powerful and uplifting home birth story. Her courage in trusting her own body and making informed decisions is truly inspiring. But before we go, I wanted to emphasise a couple of important points. NHS guidance is just that. It's guidance. It's your right to make an informed decision about whether or not to follow it. The NHS is a service offered to you, and you have the power to choose which parts of it you want to engage with. You can take advantage of all of the services offered, pick and choose the ones that suit you, or even disengage completely if that's what feels right for you. This applies to everything from antenatal appointments to midwife care, consultant visits and health visitor check-ins. There is no law requiring you to engage with these services. While it's unfortunate that some individuals within the NHS may resort to threats of involving other services like social services, remember that this is illegal on their part, not yours. Social services cannot pressure you for simple choice for not engaging with the NHS. Next week I'll be talking to Jess Evans, a pre- and postnatal yoga instructor, so make sure you tune in for some incredible insights on how yoga can support your journey through your pregnancy and beyond. And don't forget, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.